So, hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So, today I've got the lovely Kat Bright from the Health Booster with me. So, Kat is a nutritional therapist, and she's been one of my Digestion with Confidence practitioners since the very beginning. She's very well versed in digestive support, but also Kat's area of expertise is heavily around the weight loss space. So, it seemed to make sense to get Kat to come and have a chat with me today around her experience of supporting patients taking GLP-1 medications and talking about some of the health issues from a digestive perspective that she's seen in clinic. So thanks very much for joining me, Kat. I hope that was a suitable introduction.
Yes, thank you very much for having me, Debbie. Lovely to see you.
No problem. So tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing with GLP-1 patients and how that's going.
Yes, so I work at a private GP clinic. So all our clients are really well supported, both from a GP point of view, but also from me as the kind of nutrition specialist in that clinic. So for the client journey, we do bloods before they even see me and before we even put them on the medication, which I think is really important to make sure that they are, they fall into the right criteria. And then they have the initial consultation with the GP, who kind of starts them on the journey, gives them some very basic nutrition advice, and then they come to see me. It's really interesting. A lot of them say, "Oh, I don't need to see the nutritionist. I kind of know how to eat. I mean, this will really help." And every single one of them has then come away going, "Oh my God, I learned so much. It's been amazing. I hadn't realized that what I felt was healthy or how I felt I was eating was actually not quite the right way." So yeah, it's a super interesting conversation and a really nice collaboration between the GP and myself, because every client that comes through our doors, we make sure that we're supporting them. We decide together whether they should go up in dose or whether they perhaps need to come off, titrate down, and come off them. So it's a nice collaboration journey for the client.
That's good, and I think that's quite important, isn't it? Because a GLP-1 medication is only part of the process, and it's a really useful tool, but it's not the be-all and end-all, is it?
No, and I think what it's interesting, and I was discussing this actually with the GP just the other day. A lot of people feel that they just need to go on the medication and then that works. But actually, those that implement the nutrition advice the most, get the most out of it. So we know that those clients of ours that perhaps say they're doing the right thing, but we know that they're not, kind of thing, it's translated in the results. They're just not really seeing the benefits as much as we know they could be, or they're the ones also that perhaps are experiencing more of the side effects because they're just not eating enough of the kind of fiber rich foods. They're maybe not hydrating enough. You can definitely see muscle loss with them, and in some cases hair loss.
Yeah, and that's key, isn't it? Because there's one thing around just suppressing appetite and reducing caloric restriction, and I see quite a lot on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube where there's people talking about just suppressing their appetite completely, or they're suppressing their appetite, they're restricting their calories, but they're eating chocolate crisps and there's no nutrition going in there. And yes, there's that whole calories in, calories out answer that if you're calorie restricting, you will lose weight. But that doesn't mean that you're giving your body what it needs to function. And that's just setting you up for failure further down the line, isn't it? Wouldn't you
Yeah,
agree?
you're absolutely right. You've got to give the body the micronutrients and the macronutrients it needs. You've got to give it the amino acids, the building blocks to build protein. You've got to give it, your body, everything else that it needs. Otherwise, it's things like the hair loss is I see definitely. And that's such a, extreme. No one wants to lose their hair. But that's just such, for me, I'm just saying, well, you're not getting enough of the micronutrients. So your body's shut off hair growth, nail growth. Your body doesn't care whether you're growing your hair or nails. We care if our nails suddenly start splitting and our hair starts falling out. But our body, that's not a survival, it's protecting everything else. So that's a
Yeah.
key thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the argument that I use all the time. It's what is expendable. And you're right, our hair and our nails are expendable. I've recently obviously been on my road trip, for those that have been watching some of my videos. And my mum-in-law came with me, and she'd be like, we'd go down for breakfast and she'd have a pan au chocolat or a croissant. And it's like, that's not good enough. And she's like, but that's what I want. And then we got to the end of the holiday, and she just sort of said to me, what do you think I can do for my hair and my nails? And I'm like, eat some protein.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
think hair and nails and bone and muscle are made out of?
And it's like, I've only been trying to tell you this for the last 2 weeks, and it's like, yes, it's like, right, I'll get you some collagen powder as a quick sort of get something in, but you've got to eat more protein.
But even the collagen powder, it doesn't contain all the amino acids. I see this so much in like Facebook groups or influencers pushing collagen. And a lot of people come to me, it's the number one question if I'm running a workshop or a talk, which collagen brand should I use? And I'm saying you shouldn't need a collagen brand, actually. You should be eating enough protein, which has got all the essential amino acids, rather than a collagen powder, which has a few. There might be some cases that people will need a collagen, but most people are wanting it for their skin health. And I'm like, the research for collagen and skin health is so poor.
And it's like the argument between different types of collagen. At the end of the day, they are literally just amino acids, and the body will do what it will do. And no, I'm not a great proponent of just taking collagen alongside your GLP-1, but for my mother-in-law particularly, it's like, if that's something that will just get a little bit more amino acids in, because I know she's not going to eat as much protein as I need her to eat. It's just that it's better than nothing. But food, obviously, if it's always hard with older people to get them to eat food, and I think it's the same is true with GLP-1 users, isn't it? When you're suppressing appetite, protein is quite satiating, so you can't eat as much of that as you could perhaps eat chocolate bars or ice cream. So it's just finding that balance, isn't it?
It is. But what I find is they feel much better when they're prioritizing their protein and fiber. It's actually those that are perhaps not listening to the nutrition advice and eating maybe the ice cream still, the pan au chocolats or whatever they were eating, or maybe drinking things like, fizzy drinks or high alcohol. They're the ones that the side effects are much worse with. And what we say in our clinic is, that's your body saying that that's the food that it doesn't really want. It's the food that's not serving you. So actually listen to that, your body. That side effect is associated because you're carrying on eating the food that's just not serving you. So, try and eat the right things. It's hard though when you've got that reduced appetite. We've had clients that say to me, I had one client that she wants to come off. She's only been on it for 6 months. She's lost about 10 kilos. She said, I hadn't realized how much I love the love of food and listening to my body and that anticipation of food. She said, I'm a real foodie, and I found it actually, her mood has been really low while she's been on it because she has just fallen out of love with wanting to cook. She says, I open the fridge kind of wanting to cook and then just closing it because I just
And that brings us full circle to the digestion side of things, doesn't it? Because we talk all the time about the anticipatory impact on the digestive process, that anticipation, the cooking of food, the smell, the enjoyment of food is what helps the body to function on a digestive capacity.
Yes, that first stage of digestion is that cephalic phase, isn't it? If you're not doing that, you're not getting those digestive enzymes primed and ready to digest if you're not eating. Yeah.
That's it. And then when we think about the impact of a GLP-1 on that digestive process from a hormonal regulation perspective, holding food in the digestive system for longer, impacting the gallbladder, all of that just leads to those digestive symptoms that I know, Kat, you see quite a lot in clinic. So what's your experience of that digestive side with the patients that you work with?
What we usually find, I think over the board, nearly everyone, because of that delayed gastric emptying, we definitely see constipation rearing its head. So that slower digestion, that's nearly everyone will experience that to some extent. So obviously that's like the first thing we talk about and get through. But what I also find is those people that have potentially had a history of IBS, and I use the term IBS loosely, it just means some kind of digestive discomfort perhaps in the past, that definitely seems to come back, perhaps because it hadn't necessarily been resolved. Maybe they'd changed their diet slightly, but it dampened down, but it definitely, that comes back. But also you think, who are the kind of people that are more likely to have IBS? Women over 40, those that perhaps are overweight, those that are, may perhaps got, diabetes, gallbladder issues, bile acid issues. They're the ones that definitely have had that history of IBS. It definitely seems to come back. And I also think that slowing of that, the migrating motor complex in these cases definitely doesn't help, because it's kind of almost not doing its job. It's not clearing up before the next meal almost. And that's an issue, I think.
Yeah, and that's where we see that from a microbiome, sort of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth perspective, don't we? And I see lots of people talking about just using antimicrobials. There's lots of influencers talking about using things like berberine and that. And for me, the bacteria is not the problem, it's the process that's the problem. And it's managing that along the way, isn't it? So I
tend not to use berberine, and I had that just from one client. Actually, it was a male client that went on to berberine, and he was experiencing digestive issues, and he went on to the berberine, and we did a stool test with him. This is actually at my clinic with the GP, and she had organised a stool test for him, and then the GP didn't really understand what berberine was. Sent me the stool test, and I was like, what is this guy taking? Because his microbiome had been depleted, and I've never seen such a depletion of microbiome. And as soon as she said berberine, I was like, well, that's why it's so depleted. Because berberine, yes, it is really great for that kind of blood sugar regulation and microbiome, but my goodness, it depletes that microbiome, which is so important. That gut health, you want a diverse, robust microbiome, not to completely eradicate it all. So that's been really interesting for me, seeing that in real time in a stool test.
Yeah, and I've seen that quite a lot, and I'm quite passionate now that we don't use antimicrobials indiscriminately, because they don't necessarily impact the pathogenic bacteria or the bacteria that are causing the problem as much as they impact the microbiome. And if we think about, GLP-1, GIP hormone production, that's massively reliant on your microbiome. Yeah. So do you really want to go wiping out the bits that are going to help you in the longer term? And I think that's always the danger, isn't it? There's so much noise around supplementation and noise about this product does this and this product does that, and this will naturally support your GLP-1 production. And actually what we really need is to be looking at the dietary and lifestyle changes that support that, rather than just pulling another pill onto the list.
Yeah, exactly. But I also think, you've got the bile conversation, but I think actually the constipation conversation, I'm amazed by so many people think that not going for 2 to 3 days is quite normal. So I explain to them what actually happens when your stool is not being evacuated. You got that harder, your drier stool sitting in your colon. The bacteria actually can ferment further, leading to like bloating, maybe gas, definitely discomfort of some kind. You've obviously got then the excretion of the toxins that are meant to be excreted out, not being excreted, so potentially also going out through the colon wall. What's that? I mean, then changes nutrient absorption, microbiome diversity. There are actually huge implications with that constipation picture. It is not normal. Actually going once, twice, sometimes even normally if you're not on GLPs 3 times a day is actually perfectly normal. Yes. Any less than that is actually a red flag. We've got to address that. and they have to be doing. And I say to them, if you are not doing a bowel movement every single day, immediately contact me, because we need to resolve that.
Yeah. So what sorts of advice do you give to your patients then around sort of how to avoid that constipatory picture?
So definitely hydration and fiber is usually the first thing we put in, and I educate them around what actually is fiber. You know, your cucumber, your celery, and your lettuce leaves and tomatoes are not fiber. So I explain to them things like, kiwi fruits, berries are really useful for fiber. Things like carrot is useful. You know, what we're going to put in, lentils, beans, you want to put in some fiber. And in fact, actually, I quite often use lentils and beans to replace what might have been their carbohydrate, especially the white starchy carbohydrate, like the white rice, the white bread. I say to them, well, what nutrients does that contain? Really very little. Actually, let's replace that with some lentils and beans, so we're increasing that fiber. So definitely that could be really useful. Prunes sometimes, if we have got that backup of that constipation picture, especially if there's been a history of constipation in the past. Quite often I will get them have 2 kiwi fruits a day. So there's quite a lot of evidence of kiwi fruits 2 a day being helpful in a constipation picture when you're not on GLP-1. So I quite often introduce that quite early on. Actually, we're going to put that in to make sure that we're not looking at the constipation picture. Ideally, if you can have the skin on your kiwi fruits, there are benefits. That doesn't always go down well with everyone, so I get them to slice it.
Isn't it? So
yeah. So, but if you slice it really finely both ways and cut it into little cubes, stir it into your Greek yogurt, which is really high in protein, quite easy to eat for them. That kind of can be a good breakfast. So you've got your fiber and your protein, that can help. And then sometimes I have to add in some supplements. Actually, some magnesium can be really useful. Sometimes to get that bowel moving a little bit. That's not helping. Making sure they're moving as well. That's really important. So actually, daily walk, especially that walk after a meal, helps bring down the blood sugar levels anyway. Just 10 minutes, but actually just that movement. So if you're someone sitting down all day at a desk, and I'm quite guilty of that, having to see clients, face to face sometimes, but I'm always making sure I get up in between my clients. I run up and down the stairs to go to the loo. I kind of try and get up and about. But yeah, if people are sedentary, I actually get them to set an alarm. Mm-hmm. On that alarm, we're drinking some water, we're moving around a little bit. And actually, I've got one client, and he says with his alarm, because I told him how important muscle health is with his alarm, he also goes and does some bicep curls or some overhead presses with his weights. Love it. Or some squats, even better.
But that's the beauty of, I like to refer to that as habit stacking, isn't it? It's like that, what can you do that's going to get you a big impact, but all in one go? And I think having an alarm that reminds you that you need to do all of those things stops that overwhelm of an alarm going off every 10 minutes going, now it's time for this or now it's time for that. And I think what I see quite a lot that a lot of patients don't realise is the impact of the GLP-1 on your first reflex, because it's the same reflex as your appetite reflex, isn't it? So it's so easy to forget to drink. I think even without a GLP-1, it's easy to forget to have a drink, but with a GLP-1, it's much more.
You're right.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And then there's so many influencers talking about, taking electrolytes. Well, do you need an electrolyte? Do you just need water? You're dehydrated because you're not drinking. And yes, if you're vomiting or you've got severe diarrhea, then yes, an electrolyte might be appropriate. But for most people, we actually just need some fluid, don't we?
Yeah, most people don't need electrolytes. I quite like the taste of some electrolytes, but I exercise probably more than the normal person. My husband always says that I kind of live in the gym, but I don't live in the gym. But yeah, I do. I exercise a lot more than most people. So again, most people just need to drink enough water.
Yeah.
And again, so I say to them, look, you really should be drinking. I said, there's no set amount, but I think that 2 litres a day is probably quite a good guide. We divide it throughout the day. Yeah. Starting that day with a glass of water is really useful. then eating an hour later, and then having a glass in between your meal, after your lunch, in between the next meals, and then your evening meal. Probably not having it too late at night, because I'm not wanting them to get up in the middle of the night, because sleep's also really important.
Absolutely. But I think the thing for people to take away from this is the fact that whilst the GLP-1 is doing a really good job of helping them lose the weight, how you eat and how you manage your day-to-day impacts the journey as a whole, how successful that journey is, and how successful you'll be beyond the GLP-1, isn't it? Because if all you're doing is eating less of the usual foods that you were eating, when that GLP-1 comes away, you're just going to go back to those habits. Whereas if you've changed your eating behaviour in advance, then there's a better chance that that's going to be a better journey once the GLP-1 comes out. And I know there's a lot of discussion about whether people should, stay on them for life or not, but we don't really have that long-term data yet to know if that's appropriate or not.
And I also don't think there's, so I use 2 studies, which I give my clients, going to show them. There was 2 studies. So one was done with the BMJ, so British Medical Journal, in recently. And this looked at 37 studies, and it showed there was a rebound of, I think, 0.8 kilogram per month after stopping the GLP. So basically, they went back to their starting weight within 18 months.
Yeah.
And then there's another study. This is a clinic in Denmark. And this study, it was a multidisciplinary clinic. So they had a team of GPs, personal trainers, nutrition advice. I think they did it all through an app. And it was really behavioural change alongside the dietary lifestyle habit change. And they did the nutrition, the exercise, and all the habits. And they had a really good weight loss, but also post coming off it, they also had really good maintenance. They didn't have that rebound weight gain afterwards because people had learnt the habits really well. And they did, actually, their dosage never went very high. So their belief was put people on the lowest effective dose so that they're minimizing the food noise, but it's not completely going away, because we still need to get those macronutrients and micronutrients in to get the results that they needed, but also that the weight, then when they started reducing the medication, the behavioral habits had been so embedded that they took over, and it was just that weight maintenance. Because even when it comes to natural weight loss, I say to people, actually the weight loss itself is not the difficult bit. The difficult bit is that understanding that weight maintenance is a lifelong habit.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we do every day. So it's so short term to just think, oh, I'm going to do something for 6 weeks and then I'm going to be all right. No. After 6 weeks is when the hard stuff comes, because actually you've got to realize that what you do every day for the rest of your life. And that's very difficult to people. That I say to them, actually losing weight's not hard. It's maintaining it, because you have to enjoy the experience, because you have to just want to do this and carry on eating this way for your rest of your life. And a lot of people are like, oh, really? I've got to not have everything I like all the time.
And that's where how you manage the journey becomes so important, doesn't it? Because we all know that, Weight Watchers Slimming World, you get to a goal, but if it's not a sustainable way of eating, then you can't continue that on lifelong, can you? And it's not about dieting, is it? It's about having appropriate dietary habits that support your goals going forward, isn't it?
So when I see clients that, aren't on the GLP-1, I say to them that what my goal is to do is to educate you how to eat for the rest of your life. And it means that occasionally we will put in something that you might call a treat, because if you can never envisage yourself eating these foods all the time, you're not going to be able to keep up with it. So, if you're going on holiday and you like an ice cream, well, have an ice cream. If it's your birthday and you want a piece of cake and a glass of wine, well, you absolutely have that. If you go out though and have a takeaway 3 nights a week and alcohol every night of the week, well, that's not going to get you to the goal you want. So we have to manage your lifestyle and your habits so that they align with what you really want, but without being super, super restrictive either, because you have to enjoy the journey that you're on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're never going to do it in 20, 30, 40 years' time.
No, and you always want what you think you can't have, don't you? So having that permission to do that is really important, isn't it?
Yeah. If you want the chocolate, have the chocolate, but when are we going to have it? How much are we going to have it? And how can we ration it? And how many days in a week are we going to have it? And I have that conversation with clients, go, oh, how much alcohol can I have? And I'm like, well, how much do you want to have? And let's have a little debate about it, and open it up that, yes, you can have it, but it has to fit also within what your goals are and where you want to be.
Yeah, this is it, isn't it? And it is really about behaviour change, isn't it? It's getting that mindset. And let's face it, society, shops, food, drink, temptation is everywhere, isn't it? And we're not geared up for having a good relationship with food and drink, because it's just there pushed down our throats all the time, isn't it? And it's just getting a strategy for that, isn't it?
And then I think that's what's so unfair at the moment. The marketing of these products is so clever. All of those ultra processed foods. I say to people, look, they're a combination of fat and sugar, and they reach that bliss point. In nature, you don't find foods that have got that fat and the sugar. It's only
that from a piece of broccoli, do you?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, you get fibre, but you just don't get it. I say you get fruit has got sugar in, but there's no fat in fruit.
No.
And you've got fat, but it doesn't have the sugar combined. So it is that combination of fat and sugar, but also they're hyper. There's no fibre in an ultra processed food, so there's nothing. So it's very easy to overeat it because you're not getting that satiety factor that you get from protein and fibre, which obviously stretches your stomach lining and gives you that satiety feeling. So it's very easy to overeat things like that, and I just think also, we're not educating our children enough about what food should be. The amount of school kids I see on the way to school eating a packet of crisps or a chocolate bar on their way to school.
Yeah.
That's not a breakfast. And that's so sad that what are we now teaching these children? That we're teaching them that these hyper ultra processed foods are a meal. No.
It's like, you don't see people having Sunday lunch now, but McDonald's is always chock-a-block, because we have one near us and there's a queue round the road to get in on a Sunday lunch, and it's, at the end of the day, these things are a treat, aren't they? They're, you're out for the day, you're doing something, but they're not a staple diet. And I think it's also important that people realise that we're not anti-GLP-1. I know you're certainly not anti-GLP-1, because you help patients with that whole process, and it's not cheating, is it? It's a tool in the toolkit. And they
can be really, really powerful. Especially from an anti-inflammatory point of view. I had a client with endometriosis, and her second consultation with me, she almost came in jumping for joy. She said this is the first time. So her endometriosis had been really bad. Post-children, it had kind of eased off a bit, but coming up to menopause, it was becoming definitely more painful. And she said it wasn't just painful around about period time, it was also ovulation. She was so bad that she'd be lying on the kitchen floor in tears because it was so painful. She literally came running into the clinic. She went, I cannot believe I am not in pain for the first time. It'd been several months that she'd been on this, and she just said, I'm not getting that pain. The inflammation had lowered using these GLP-1s, that she was just, And she said, I'm not now. What she was doing was overeating the wrong foods to comfort her while she was in the pain as well. So she said, I'm just not feeling that need. So the weight loss is obviously coming off. I'm seeing her tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to it as well. So I'm hoping that she's going to get us still be seeing the same.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? And I think that's where, having the service where you're sort of looking and going, okay, well, we've dampened appetite enough that you're finding it easier to cope with, we're reducing inflammation, you're feeling better, you're more likely to want to exercise, and then you're in a much better place to have that good journey. I think where people are just sort of going right to the highest dose and suppressing their appetite completely and not eating, that's not particularly helpful for them. But it's a good tool used in the right way, isn't it? And I think what we've not got enough resources for people to use it in the right way. So if people having watched this video, have taken any of those tools away and sort of taken some of that on board, then this video has certainly done what it has. I've really enjoyed our chat today, Kat. I know we're doing another one another day around sort of bone health and GLP-1, so I look forward to that. Anybody that's watched this video, we do have other videos around the impact of GLP-1s on the digestive process, on the gallbladder. So do make sure that you have a look at those. If you want to reach out to Kat, we'll put Kat's website into the comments, and you can reach out and ask for some support as a patient if that's what you want. There are obviously lots of other practitioners out there that you can work with, so always look on something like the BANT website or the ANP-NNA website to get somebody that's trained. And if you've got issues with your digestive system, then please do reach out to Kat or have a look on the Digestion with Confidence website to find somebody that can help you. But do make sure you work with somebody that's suitably trained. I think that's really important. Just following advice online and taking supplements because this influence is being paid is not particularly helpful. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do make sure that you subscribe. Subscribing does make it much easier for people to see these videos coming up. Please do drop some comments and likes on the video as well. And Kat and I will see you in another video, and I'll see you in lots of videos. I'm sure you'll get fed up with me before long. But thanks for watching.
Bye everyone.
Bye.